Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Lowdown. Today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by both the Chief Soccer Officer and Technical Director of FC Dallas, Andre Zanotta. Andre, welcome to the show.
Hi, Connor. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and sharing this next minutes with you, so we can discuss about football, which is always great.
And Andre, as I begin at the start of every episode, I take the guests back to their youth and more so their earliest childhood memory when it comes to football. When I say those words to you, what does that mean?
Oof, and a lot of things. So I'm from Brazil, and soccer, football. I will say soccer and football all the time. So I like to say football more, but I'm here in the West for a long time now, so I kind of used to just say soccer. But there's so many memories. One of the things that came first to my mind is just playing in the streets of where my grandma used to live. I was very young, maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, and playing in the streets with my brother and my cousins and friends that lived near her house, and most of the time barefooted. So this is something I really miss. That is really what you see a lot in Brazil. Kids playing everywhere, and that's I remember a lot about my childhood playing soccer, and also I was this week I was like, we are in World Cup, so I remember some flashes I have of watching the World Cup 1986. I was 6 years old, and I remember being with my mom and dad at their friend's house watching, I think it was Brazil, Spain. I have that memory as well. So since we are in World Cup times, that's a good memory. I was trying to tell my kids about my first World Cup memory and how many World Cups I've seen. And the first one that I have some flashes is 1986.
It's a brilliant thing, which I hope will remain protected with the World Cup, Andre, these 4-year cycles, because it enables us to take a lens into the past. And as you spoke about there so eloquently, speaking about 1986, your earliest childhood memory when it comes to football. But if we're to look at the current day, I mean, you hold the current capacity of Chief Soccer Officer, Technical Director, FC Dallas. How would you define that role?
So it's there's different names for that position, and here in MLS you have GMs, you have sporting directors, you have vice president of soccer operations, or vice president of soccer, and technical director. The league calls each one of the sporting directors of the 29 now. This in 2023 we'll have 29 MLS teams. They call us CSOs, chief soccer officers. And so how I describe my role and the sporting director role in general is just the person that oversees the whole strategy and this operations of the football soccer department. We are involved with the multidiscipline people working, managing people from multidisciplines. So it's a lot about the strategic is just the vision and the plans for the club, for the soccer side, the sporting side, for that year, for the short, mid, and long term. And also the operations of the daily basis, and in my case is from the academy level up to the first team. We have also a second team here that I'm directly involved, and it's a lot about managing people. We manage people with so many different backgrounds, so many different expertise, and as I said, people from different areas: medical, performance, scouting, the coaching staff, players. uh, and uh, and also managing and establishing processes, protocols. So with how our process to sign a player. What is the process from with our scouting department, involving our coaching staff, and involving sometimes the medical department. So there's a lot of different processes, and that the sporting director has to manage and make sure it's running smoothly and it's running well. So it's very broad. Usually fans see our position as that guy that is just signing players, or like we obviously we're this is a part of our role, extending players contract, managing those moments where to extend the contract, where we transfer a player. Player negotiation is also something important, but there's a lot more in the sporting director role, as I mentioned, that it's I think it's so important for any football club to have someone in that position.
It's great for everyone listening, Andre, to hear you speak because it just goes to show how widely and wholly encompassing the role actually is. And as you know yourself, I mean, there's many different pathways to that role of technical director. I mean, be it academy, be it the recruitment side, or even what we're starting to see now, new trends with former players. However, your own pathway came from just being outside the industry. Could you tell the audience how your career began?
Yeah, so as I said in the beginning, being born in Brazil, you kind of have no choice but to love soccer. So football is just uh, we have a lot of passion for the sport, and it's in you, and it's in the country every year you go. I come from a family of lawyers. My father, my mother, my brother, they're all lawyers, and it was kind of like I thought that was the natural pathway I was going to follow. Soon I realized that I played amateur level, different clubs. I played a few tournaments in Europe when I was in local clubs, in Denmark and in Finland, in Austria. But I realized I was not talented enough to pursue the career as a professional player. So I went to law school. I finished law school, and during law school and towards the end, I was already trying to focus on sports law. I wanted to work to combine that what I was studying and with my passion for sports, especially football. So right after I graduated, I started working in a law firm just with sports law, and this was for me was just amazing to be working with that and be involved in deals, transfer of players. I was also the where I was working at that moment was more in international sports law. So a lot of cases in FIFA in the Court of Arbitration for Sports. So it was something that really I liked a lot. And then I realized when I was so we were at this law firm, I was representing many clubs in Brazil from different levels. So top clubs to medium small clubs, and I realized this was back 2006 2007, how much you needed the clubs needed people with expertise in the market, to understand negotiations, to know the language. I speak Spanish, I speak uh, English, Italian, Portuguese. So having that possibility of speaking different languages helped me. The clubs would come to me and say, Andrea, we need to go to London, or we need to go to Ukraine because we're transferring a player, or we want to sign a player. And I began to be directly involved in the managing side of the clubs, and it really got my, like I said, that's what I want to do. I don't want to be just stuck. I think the legal background and being and understanding the legal side really helps me every day in what I do. But I didn't want to be just stuck in the legal part, and I wanted to just be more part of the management side of a club. So I decided to quit my job and as a sports lawyer and go to Europe. I applied for the FIFA Master, and I was accepted to the FIFA International Master in Humanities, in Management Humanities and Sports Law. I studied and I went there in 2009. And my idea when I went there was just to have this career shift, to get out of the legal side and enter the management side of, especially I wanted to work in a football club. So this master was fantastic for me, mostly because of the networking, the people you meet. And one of the person I met there, he was the general director of a club in Mexico, Atlante FC, and he invited me to go there after the master to help him in different areas, not specifically the sporting side, but also commercial. So I could have, even though it's a small medium club in Mexico at that time, Atlante right now it's in second division, but it really gave me an idea of what professional working in a professional club is. So, and then I came back to Brazil. That was very important to have that in my CV, my one experience in a club, because I noticed when I finished the master, trying to find opportunities to work in the industry in clubs, they really saw my legal background, and it was tough to get a job in what I wanted to do. So I went to Atlanta, and then I went back to Brazil to work at Traffic Sports, the company that owned Estoril in Portugal. They had their own development club in Brazil, the Desportivo Brazil. Both clubs are sold now, and I was part of managing those clubs, and that's how I went. And one of the directors in Traffic Sports went to Santos FC in 2012, early 2012, and he invited me to be his assistant to the sporting director. And then I went to Santos in 2012. At that time, Neymar was still there, Felipe Anderson, Rafael Cabral, many of the players that later went to Europe. Santos had won the Libertadores the year prior to that. And then I went to Santos, this sporting director. After maybe a year, a little bit less, he left the job, and I became the interim sporting director of Santos, one of the gigantic clubs in Brazil. And I was 32 to 33 at that time. So for me, it was huge experience. And then the president also had health issues. He had to step aside, and the vice president that I had a very good relationship. And then he asked me to stay as the sporting director. So I stayed in Santos for 3 years. And I like to say that in Brazil, with the political instability that there is in clubs, and it's so difficult to survive. And to 3 different presidents, I started with one president, and I had another 2. So I stayed there for 3 years. After we won the State Cup in 2015, I decided to leave and pursue other opportunities. And I went to Sport Recife, stayed there 1 year. Then I went to Gremio, another giant club in Brazil. Stayed in Gremio for 2 years. We won the Libertadores, was 2 magical years there in Gremio. We won Libertadores 2017. We lost to Real Madrid, the final of the FIFA Club World Cup 2017. We won the Recopa, the South American Recopa in 2018. We won again the State Cup after a long time in 2018. So it was very good years in Santos. And then in the end of 2018, one of the persons that I had working with me in Traffic Sports, Traffic had an office in Miami, and Luis Musi was running this office there, and he was that time the not technical director, he was the director of soccer operations of FC Dallas, and he had received an offer from Orlando City. So in the end of 2018, we were negotiating a center back, Bressan. I was, as a Gremio sporting director, transferring Bressan to Dallas. And when we ended the negotiations, Luis Musi told me, "Hey, I got an offer from Orlando City. I'm moving there. I'd like to recommend you to the owners of FC Dallas. Would you be interested?" I said, "Yes, for sure." And that's how I'm here. So it was a bit long answer, but now I'm going to my 5th season in MLS, which is great, and I really enjoy being here.
It's an absolutely terrific timeline which you've just shown to us, Andre. But one of those earliest experiences that I wanted to unpack was the one at Santos. And again, for those listening, a club etched in footballing folklore. Players such as players such as Neymar, who coincided with your time there. But any technical director that we spoke with on this show, Andre, has always spoke about the tricky balance of managing what you can do in the short term with a focus on the long term. Being at a club like Santos, managing those expectations, 32 years of age, with all the pressure coming from fans amidst political turmoil off the pitch with change of presidency and whatnot. What was your internal self-talk like during that time, being a young sporting director?
Yeah, so I think I really realized everything that I went through, and how being young sporting director in such a big club, with a historical club, as you mentioned, after my period there, like when you're there, there's so much going on, and you don't have time to just get out of where you are and have a broader look, like when you go to a spaceship, and then you see the earth from a different perspective and see how beautiful it is. And we're here, and we can see that when we're inside, apparently. But it was such a big challenge, and we had so much to do at that time, because Santos had won a lot of things in the previous years, and we transferred Neymar, we transferred Danilo, Alexandro, just to mention 3 that are in the current squad of the World Cup, and also, as I mentioned, Felipe Anderson and others that left the club, and we had to rebuild the squad, and the expectations from fans and from everyone around the city, the communities, is just team will continue to win. And we know that football doesn't happen unless you're a Bayern Munich or maybe Red Bull Salzburg. You're not going to be winning every year. So it was really challenging. I made some changes in the staff at that time, bringing people I knew, and I think we really it's the expectations of big clubs in Brazil is always they will be the top. It's we say in Brazil that it's the second place doesn't matter much. People don't value the second place, and you have to win. So it was more of reconstructing the team at that time, and I think we did a good job. Obviously, you cannot win right away when you lose players of this caliber, as I mentioned. But you start to build, and especially there's also a big expectation when you're Santos, based on, you just mentioned 2 of the top players that came from the academy, but there's so many more that were developing in the club, and we always expect the first team to have players promoted from the academy. So I remember in 2014 we had a roster of near 60% of players from our academy, which is a huge number, including some players that we had. Robinho that we brought him back from AC Milan. He was on loan back to Santos. Uh, so yeah, it's for me it was I learned so much being thrown like, hey, here you go, you're in charge of it now, and obviously I was already involved as assistant sporting director the year before, so I knew well what was going on there. But when you're in the top position, and but I had a lot of support, especially from the president at that time, Odidio. I'm so grateful to him for the opportunity he gave and for believing in me. That was just like this really changed the direction of my career. So once you have that kind of opportunity, and then in 2015, we to the end of 2014 there was the elections, and the opposing party won the elections. So completely and it's just like any other politics in countries. You see clubs are the same when you don't have owners. 90% of the clubs don't have owners. Now it's changing in Brazil a little bit, and I think it's going to change more and more. But and I stayed. So the new president came to me. He said, "Hey, I've heard good things about you. I want you to continue with us." But even though like we reconstruct the club, we won the State Cup, as I mentioned, in 2015, which is a big thing in Brazil, the State Cup, and 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 then I thought it was the moment to step aside, because when a new president comes, even though it's the same club, there's a lot of new things they want to impose, and some of the things that was not aligned with what I thought, the way I wanted, and many people that were with me before, during the previous years, they left. So after we won that competition, and around June 2015, I decided to, and it's 3 years without vacation, without having time for the family. So I thought it was the moment to do that, and then, as I said, I rested for a little bit, and then a new challenge at Sport Recife came.
And I mean, it's suffice to say the negotiation skills, Andre, that you would have learned in your legal career would come in handy, because no sooner had you taken over the role that the eyes of the world were on you with the protracted negotiations which took Neymar at the time from Santos to Barcelona. Can you give us an inside scoop as to what went on during that time?
During the transfer of Neymar to Barcelona, yeah, that was crazy moments for us. So I'm sorry if it takes me long, because it's a very interesting story, I think, for whoever's listening, what happened before and what led us to transfer him into 2013. So Neymar had a contract. His employment contract with Santos was valid until February 2015, when I got there. Well, no, before I got there, sorry. So, and then the people that were there at that time, especially the president, Luis Alvarez, who passed away 2-3 years ago, he sat down with the board, and they thought, Neymar is our fan base is increasing. We're getting more sponsorship money because of him. We're getting more TV money because of him. We're winning titles. The sporting side, the commercial, the financial, everything is going well with him. So and there was a lot of clubs, Chelsea, many Premier League clubs and clubs from Spain, top clubs from Europe wanted to sign him. And I don't remember exactly when. I think it was 2010 when he sat down with Neymar's father. So 2 years before my arrival at the club. and they I'm sorry, they agreed on, let's make your contract until the World Cup in Brazil, July, so 30 June 2014, and we won't transfer you. We want you to stay until the end of the contract, and then you go free, and you choose the club you want to go. So, but it's important that we want to keep him for longer. So whatever we're making with all those things that I mentioned, makes more sense to keep him here. We're going to win more titles than letting him go before. So that was the agreement, and then it was done. No other, obviously, all the time was teams were trying to sign him, but it was the agreement was made in this way. And then fast forward to 2013, Santos was in a difficult financial moment at that time, and we sat down with and Neymar father came to speak with us, and he said, I think it's important that my son has at least 1 year playing in top leagues in Europe before the World Cup, because the 2014 World Cup means a lot for him, for the country. He's the top player in the national team, so it would be good if he has 1 year playing in Europe before he can play the World Cup, and because he's playing with the guys in top level. So at that time, and Neymar was also being with I remember making the number of days that Neymar was serving the national team during 2012 or 2013, I don't remember, or like it was 3 months that he would spend with the national team and not with the club. From the day he leaves the club until the day he returns, and all. So with the Confederations Cup or Copa America, whatever we had at that time. Sorry. So, and then we sat down. We thought maybe it's important that we try to the transfer fee money will help us and will be important for the club. And the player wants to go. He thinks it's important for him to have that experience in Europe. And we understand. So we kind of like rethought what the strategy was before, and we opened to conversations. And in the end, it was Barcelona, Real Madrid battle to try to sign him. The players showed from the beginning that he wanted to go to Barcelona, and then and that's what happened. So just to give a context of what happened before, and then we transferred him 1 year prior at the end of his contract, and then after transferring him, we found out through the media that his father had already an agreement signed with Barcelona in 2011 that he would giving them the preference whenever the player was free. So anyway, I think it was an important, I think was the decision we had to make at that time, especially respecting the player desire to go there, and he did really well in Barcelona.
And all of these trials, all of these tribulations and stories, Andre, are absolutely fantastic. And what they were doing in effect was they were setting you up for the next stage of your career, which took you all the way to Gremio, who managed to achieve an absolutely phenomenal achievement in of itself, winning the Copa Libertadores in 2017. I mean, owing to the time that you spent there, what were the secrets that you can elaborate upon behind Gremio's success?
Well, I was asked this question before, and for me, the group of people we had in the club at that time, especially the players, with such I've never seen such a winning mentality in so many different players. We had in our locker room that we knew we were up to something special. So the head coach that is back now in Gremio right now, Renato, he's a legend in the club, and he's a guy that also is hungry for wins, and this and he can motivate the players and everyone around really well. So it really worked well. It was such a good environment we had in the club, and so many good people going in the same direction, and it was really special. So when we were playing Libertadores and advancing every stage, we felt it's going to be tough for us for some team to take this away from us, because it was really good, and you could see and you can feel when you're inside. It's hard to explain, but we're in your side, and you get this feeling of how things are working well, and the spirit you have, and the mindset of everyone that is working there, again, especially the players that we had, uh, just uh, just made us be so successful. Unfortunately, we had, by when we played Real Madrid, we were missing key players. One of them was Arthur that we sold to Barcelona the year after we won the Libertadores. Arthur got injured, so he didn't play the FIFA Club World Cup. We had Maicon, our captain, that also couldn't play. And Real Madrid, I remember the day they played us, the final, Zidane, the coach at that time, he had all the players available. So when you have and at that, like Casemiro, Modric, Kroos, Cristiano Ronaldo, Sergio Ramos, Varane, Marcelo, Bale, Benzema. So it's real, and we lost 1-0 when and Cristiano scored from a free kick that right it through the wall. So, but we played well with even some of our starters missing, but it was really special a couple of years that I had in Gremio.
Seems as though that indeed was a special time throughout, during your career, Andrew, being part of a club where there was that the unseen force, this momentum, everyone working towards that one vision of winning the Libertadores and representing not only the club, not only the country, but the continent on the world stage against Real Madrid in that 2017 Club World Cup final. But if we were to look at a layer deeper, ultimately, you, in your role as technical director, you're responsible for staff, a huge number of staff. What goes into creating that high performance culture, not only maintaining it, but also building upon and sustaining that into the future?
I would say there are many factors that can help create that high performance, and especially I think a winning mentality environment in the football club. I think first of all, you got to respect and understand the different needs from the people you're managing, and trying to make them. We need to make everyone there deliver the best, so players can be solely focused on their best in training, their best in games. So there are no issues everywhere else. I worked in clubs that we had issues with salaries sometimes, and payments. So and obviously these affect whatever you have in a daily basis with everyone. So but when you can have all the infrastructure, you have good training ground, you have good technology, and all you allow all the different departments to work with what's best available, and you provide to the coaching staff, to the players, a great environment so they can be working at as I said, and focused on the objectives we have, and getting better, and just to win the game. So I think those are the main things I would say that helps create this winning environment, this high performance environment that you can again get from help. I think that's one of the also roles of the sporting directors, just to understand. And what I do here in FC Dallas, just to give an example, after the end of the season, I sit down with the head of each department and we make a evaluation of the year, and just what went well, what went wrong, and let's always focus on improving and fixing what we didn't do very well, and improve for the next year. And in that area, we also what there's out there in the market, what other clubs are doing, what kind of tools we can bring that will give us, if we can, like in the physiotherapy, for example, if we can shorten the recovery time for one player, injured player, in 1 day or 2 days, this will give us an advantage. So those small things that we can help in each department, and in the scouting process, we will how we minimize the mistakes of when signing a player, what adjustments we can have in the scouting process. So all those things, keep improving, keep learning, keep understanding what we need to do better in each area. It's key for a good environment, and a winning environment, and high performance environment.
And about you in your current capacity, Andre, too, because I mean, you come from a football loving family. In fact, your brother holds a similar role to yourself at Palmeiras, you know, a hugely successful organization who've won back to back Libertadores recently. But, you know, for those that are watching the video, they may notice that you have a book behind you, No Rules by Netflix. So I'm just wondering, you, in terms of your own growth, your own evolution, I mean, where do you look both in and outside of football to optimize your leadership style?
Where do I look? Sorry.
Where do you look both inside of football and outside of football for growth, continuous development, and to optimize your own leadership?
Yes, my brother is kind of different. He was vice president of Palmeiras until December 2021. Palmeiras has a new president now, but he was involved more in the political side of the club, more than being sporting director or have a specific role in the club. But he was part of a very, very, very successful administration period. Palmeiras won, especially 2021, a year that they won 2 Libertadores. Because of the pandemic, things got postponed. So it was such a huge and special year, and they did their very, very good job. But going to your question, I like to, I have one of the things that I have a collection of books in sports. So one thing that I like to read a lot and see what the others are doing. I don't have any issue to see to look at the top clubs and see what they're doing best and try to apply to the reality I have here. I like to visit clubs as well when I have time, and especially now in the off season. And I'll try to do a partial. We're going to Spain during our preseason, and I plan to during that time visit a few clubs around there, and just to get ideas and understand it. And it's always fascinating when I go to visit those clubs, because you always get something. We have a good relationship with Bayern Munich, and I spent some time in Bayern in 2019 learning what they do in the different areas. So I like this a lot. I like watching series and documentaries about in sports. So I really like everything related to sports. It's something that attracts me a lot. I'm right now, during the pandemic, I did a leadership program in Oxford, online, just to learn more about leadership, And I'm right now enrolled in the FIFA Club Management Diploma. So I think we're gonna, it's a continuous learning. I think there's so much more that I can improve what I do. I can get better. So I tried in different areas and in different ways to make myself better, a better sporting director, better, and I get the support here in FC Dallas from ownership, that they invest in those things to help me get better, because they know if I'm better, this will help the club as well. So those are the main things that I like to do, and and continue to improve what I believe are my the things that I need to improve in what I do.
It's a never-ending journey of improvement and growth. However, I'd like to countenance that with the fact earlier on you spoke about during your earlier years at Santos, you went like 3 years without a vacation. So I'm just curious, Andre, a lot of people look towards you for guidance and leadership. And it's so easy, as you know, to get caught on the hamster wheel, really, of professional football. I mean, when in fact you get time now to just take a step back, take a big, deep breath and reflect.
I wish I had more time to do that, because we don't, once the season ends, it's the off season is a really busy time for us to prepare the roster for the following season. So that's what I'm doing right now. Just and as I said, my role is also involved not only the first team but also the second team. The second team, we're also hiring a new coach, and we're preparing the new coaching staff and the new roster for the next season. Obviously, the main focus is with the first team, but there's a lot to do during those times. I once this main period of and signing players and getting preparing the preseason and everything is ready. I think it's a time when I can stop a little bit, take a breathe, and focus on trying to uh, just rest and think about my health as well, because we're in a never-ending things to do, and the sporting director role is really, there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of things, and once the season begins, it's also very time consuming. So, and I have two young kids that I need to spend time with them. I know they're not going to be in that age forever, so this is something that I also I it really I put pressure on me, because I want to spend time and have time with them. So, but we gotta find. I try to do morning exercises, and even during this time, and I have Italian classes every week to keep improving my languages that I speak, and other things that I like to do, play tennis, just because this helps us get away a little bit from the working environment and from the things that consumes us so much, and it also helps us mentally, especially mentally, our mental health. It really helps a lot.
Of course, and I think that's important to note as well. But if I was to bring you back again to the beginning of the conversation, we spoke briefly about, how exactly can you really evaluate the success of a technical director, and that's what both an eye in the short term and the eye in the long term. I mean, currently at FC Dallas, you're after coming through one of your most successful seasons, I believe, since 2016, with a third place finish in the MLS. Not only have the club achieved success on the field, but if you look at what they've done off the pitch in terms of protecting those player development pathways, you look at the long list of players that have come through, that club. You look at Weston McKennie, Reggie Cannon, Jesus Ferreira, Ricardo Pepe. I mean, Andre, I mean, how is the club getting it so right in terms of player development being a big part of that short term and long term focus? How has the academy been getting it right in protecting those pathways?
So that's a very good question. Is when when I came here, I came as you were saying, and I mentioned, I came from Santos, working in Santos and Gremio, two of the top academies in Brazil. You mentioned Pelé and Neymar from Santos. Ronaldinho came from Gremio's academy. So just to mention a few of the top players that came from those two clubs. And when I came here, knowing FC Dallas was known as the best academy in the US, I was really. But you come from Brazil, you have kind of like this arrogance, maybe. That I come from the top country that develops players, and the quality of players we develop. But when I came here, I was really impressed with the quality of the work we have in our academy, um, how the quality of the players that we have in the academy and we're promoting. And especially the year that I arrived here, that was the first year of our second team. So one of the main things I wanted, just and starting with a second team that started with me in 2019, to establish and well this pathway, to make sure players understood, parents, agents would understand how important it is, each one of the steps along the way for a player development pathway. And I think, and also something else that I felt was, we were, most of the players that we had here that were not getting enough minutes with the first team, that were first team players signed, they were not playing with the first team, and they were being loaned to USL teams. With all respect with the USL, but it's not the ideal window for our young players, maybe for other profile players, but for our really young players, going there, very physical game, not the most beautiful game you're going to watch. And we're paying the salary of those players to play there. No perspective of selling them to those clubs. So it was really not a good window for the young ones. And then I started to establish connections with clubs in Europe that I knew. I started having relationships with the clubs that I know from important European markets. So one of this was to establish this pathway, and then starting to show the players just like in South America, players here in the US, they dream to play in the top leagues in Europe. I hope MLS will get there to compete with those top leagues, but it's not the reality right now. I think MLS has been doing a great job, and it's growing in the right direction. And I really believe the gap will be shorter and shorter every year. But still, players want to go to Premier League, to La Liga, to French league, or Bundesliga, etc. So we wanted to make this pathway through the second team more and more important. So that's some of the players you mentioned: Ricardo Pepe, Brian Reynolds, Justin Che, Dante Silly, Tanner Tasman, players that are now in Europe. They went all through this pathway. They played for the second team, then they went to the first team, and they are now playing in top markets in Europe. We were able to loan players to important. So we loaned. First of all, we went. Chris Richards was the first transfer I made when I got here. It was just the moment I arrived, we were transferring Chris Richards to Bayern Munich, and then we had Carlos Gresso in August to Augsburg, a player that we bought from Stuttgart and then selling for almost 4 times more the price we bought to back to Bundesliga. And then there was Reggie Cannon to Boavista, Then was Brian Reynolds to Roma, Tanner Tessman to Venezia. We had Justin Che on loan to Bayern Munich, and now he's on loan to Hoffenheim. So what I mentioned about creating those bridges with Europe and allowing our players to play in the top competitions, even though second playing for the reserve team, it's great for them and great for us. So Dante Silly is in PSV on loan right now. Clubs that have a big reputation in developing players as well. We loan players to Austrian First Division. So and besides the transfer, and then Pepe was the biggest transfer in the history of an American player leaving MLS. And Pepe in January 2022 to Augsburg. So I think we are solidifying, and this is something we need to keep pushing and making this pathway stronger and stronger. So it's now with some of the rules being more flexible in MLS, people will not be very much familiar with the homegrown territory rules, but we kind of have protected territories, and now this is not going to happen as it was before. So we got to have, I don't think there's any other team in MLS that there's such a nice history of, so can tell so many stories of players coming through their system and now being in being sown and playing in top leagues in the world. Weston McKennie is obviously one of the main ones that the main one that we are now playing in Juventus, that came through the academy and went to Schalke. But this is the moment I got here, I saw part of our DNA to keep always be promoting players, having players from our academy reaching the first team, and we've been successful in doing this.
What is it down to, Andrew? I mean, what's the single biggest contributory factor, or are there many? Because there seems to be strong vision in place, you have the infrastructure, and there's some really strong-minded and strong-willed people.
So what's the question, sorry?
What would you put it down to? Is it the vision? Is it the infrastructure? Is it the people? As the reasons why that history is protected?
Yeah, it's a combination of everything. So it comes from ownership down to all the staff that either from front office and coaching staff, support staff, medical staff, everybody that it's hard to mention one. I think the vision is very clear once you enter the club. And for us, it's not only and you see the World Cup squad. We had Weston McKennie, we have Shaq Moore, Walker Zimmerman also was part of the FC Dallas. Kellyn Acosta was from our academy. Jesus Ferreira is still our player. So we are the team that provides also more players. We want to keep helping the U.S. soccer program to be more successful. And especially in 4 years from now, or less than 4 years from now, we'll have the World Cup here. And we want to continue to be the team that promotes players to play in different age groups for the U.S. national team, and especially the first team, the main national team. So it's a combination of obviously the people that have been here in the club for years and years, that are really focused on helping the players achieve this success, the vision of the club, of player development, of promoting and making football or soccer here a more popular sport, a sport that American people like to watch more and more. And we have an amazing training ground, we have a great infrastructure that we allow all this to happen. The players to come, players who want to come, and we want to be the club that every kid in the US, they want to come. I want to be a part of FC Dallas program because they develop players really well. They promote players to the first team. This is what I felt in Santos. I had calls from agents, from fathers, from parents calling me. I want to bring my kid to Santos because I know he will get there. He can get to the first team. and and obvious, and also what I mentioned in different interviews before, and I'm saying about the pathway, and then the player ending up in European leagues. Uh, we are not at the level of Santos and Gremio yet, but if you when you go to Brazil and you see a player of maybe this level, and for those that are listening, I'm just doing it with my hands here, and then a player not the same level, maybe a little bit below, but this player is from Santos Academy or Gremio Academy, and this is from an academy that is not very known as developing players, and clubs will pay more for this one because the brand Santos Gremio Academy is so strong, and the so many players went through this that gives more credibility to whoever is buying this player, that this player has the seal, the stamp of quality that comes from those type of academies, that we have that in again, not at this level, but FC Dallas now. When I go out there and in Europe and he speak with the sporting directors, chief scouts, they're looking way more careful to players that have their history in our academy, and they see, well, if this player went to FC Dallas, we better take a good look because they know how to develop players, they know how to make players good. So I think we are kind of have this stamp now, the FC Dallas Academy quality that developing players. So this makes the whole everyone that works in the club so proud of this. And when we see a player in a World Cup stage, which is the highest any player can achieve, it's amazing for us.
Suffice to say, these conversations that you're having, Andre, with clubs in Europe, the US's recent showing in the World Cup, indeed Canada's recent showing in the World Cup, are all reflections of the change in perception of how North American soccer is being viewed on the world stage. Now, undoubtedly, the 26th World Cup is going to be an important milestone for this region. But if we were to cast and zoom out a small bit more, and if we were to come back and have this conversation in a decade, where do you believe FC Dallas and MLS on a whole will be viewed on the international stage?
By 2026?
Let's say in 10 years' time, a decade from now.
Oh, in a decade. Okay. Well, as I said, I think MLS will keep growing, and I really hope that right now, what I can tell, and I've been here for 4 years, going to my fifth season, and the change in the what I see the European clubs' perception of this has changed drastically. How they see MLS as a very important market for players, especially coming from South America. If they adapt here, if they do well, it's less risk to buy a player that is playing here than going straight to South America and taking them. This I heard from different people, especially in Germany, which the culture Germany, South America is so different. So I think players, MLS will be more and more a league of choice. Agents now understand a lot more, and players, they see a lot more the value of coming to MLS as the step before making the jump to the top leagues in Europe. So in the beginning, when I got here, I felt really some of the agents, the players, top. I'm saying about some of the even players that are playing in youth national teams, 18, 19, 20-year-old players from Brazil, from Argentina, from Uruguay. No, I want to wait. I want to go to Europe. I want, and now there's a very big change in their the way of they think about the league. So you see Thiago Almada coming to Atlanta and now being in the World Cup, and this would not, if 5 plus years ago, you wouldn't see that. the player would want to go to Europe. He would not come to MLS first and then think about his next step. And us, we signed Alan Velasco earlier this year, and a top 20-year-old from Argentina. Now he's 20, but from Argentina, with clubs from different European leagues interested in him. But when we presented our project, he saw it as a very good step for him. So I think more and more this will happen. The MLS will be more and more a league of choice for. We still have the big international stars that MLS has been known for since Beckham, since Gerrard and Kaká and Thierry Henry. So many super amazing players, international stars that came here. We still have Gareth Bale, Chiellini, Insigne, Higuain was here. They're saying maybe Messi will come soon. So, but more and more you see the young players coming from, especially South America, but you see from Africa, from Europe, young players coming, playing here and seeing the league as a great step for their careers. So I think this will be more and more, and this will increase the level of the competition. So as I said before, the gap with the top European competitions will be, I think, shorter every year. I think we'll start to competing more players. Right now, it's tough for us to compete with clubs from the top leagues, but I think in 10 years' time, we will be there. I have no doubt about it. And you mentioned about FC Dallas. We just I hope we in 10 years' time we have many. What we really want is just to keep, as I'm going to be repeating this, but just continue to develop, continue to help the U.S. national team to have better players, to have to our team to be stronger and stronger. And in 10 years' time, I hope we win at least the 2-3 MLS Cups. So that certainly we need. So FC Dallas and all the MLS teams, you see so many good facilities here. Stadiums are top of the art, and you see training grounds high compared to the top teams in Europe. So this was just keep improving, and I think we'll be at a level that we are. Every team in MLS is in that same level. So and FC Dallas, we have to be at the highest standard in football as well.
We'll certainly make for an interesting follow-up to this episode, Andre, that's for sure. I have to thank you for the last hour or so. I mean, there's some remarkable insight that you've shared and that you've gleaned in and that we've been able to glean into. Andre, I mean, you're a huge inspiration for many aspiring sporting directors out there. So just before we close this podcast, I mean, what would your one bit of advice be for people wishing to embark in a career such as yours?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words and for inviting me for the podcast. It's been great to share this last hour with you. It's something I really enjoyed talking about, all those things. So, and if I could share something and encourage people that want to come work in the industry and in the sporting director role or any other role, just be curious, keep what I like. I'll just say things that worked for me, and just read a lot and participate in seminars, in forums, in whatever events you can be at to meet people. Networking in this industry is absolutely necessary. You need to meet people, get to know people that are working in the industry in all different areas. Be curious, be willing to give a step back if you're ready. I get a lot of messages from people that are working, lawyers that see my history and said, "Hey, I'm a lawyer. I've been working, but I want to work in sports." And and sometimes you won't. If you want to make this shift, you need, as this happened to me, just this step back, accept maybe a lower position, maybe something that you would not do. But if you want to enter in the sports industry, accept a lower position that will be a lower salary, believing that you give a higher jump later. But because once you enter the industry, once you have the opportunity to enter, it's fascinating. It's really, it's a cliche thing, but I really don't feel like it's as I said, time consuming, stressing. There's a lot of things, but it's you work with something you love, and this is priceless. And yeah, and I feel good. I don't feel like going to work. I have so much pleasure to do what I do, and every day wake up, go to FC Dallas, do the things I do, and uh, uh, it's worth it. So keep investing your time on meeting people, reading, studying about this, and whenever the chance comes, don't be afraid to jump into it, even if it means having not being the same position or range of salary you were making, because it's worth it.
Andre, some fantastic advice to close. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Connor. It was nice speaking to you.